This episode is proudly sponsored by the Helix, a new innovation district located in New Brunswick, New Jersey, the heart of the Northeast Corridor. The Helix provides a critical ecosystem for innovation by offering a range of physical environments, a vibrant community of leading innovators, and a strategic central location on the Northeast Corridor. The Helix will uniquely mix workspaces, classrooms, laboratories, venues, and collaborative environments, creating a dynamic community and setting for innovative minds. Universities, startups, Fortune 500 companies, entrepreneurs, researchers, and many others will all call the Helix home. Thus far, the Helix has assembled a community of innovative private and public organizations, such as Rutgers Health, the New Jersey Innovation Hub, RWJ Barnabas Health, Hackensack Meridian Health, universities from Ireland and Israel, and others. The Helix is where ideas will come to life. To learn more, visit helixnj.com.
This Halloween,
mystery lurks around every corner.
Bundle up with Disney Plus and Hulu.
What are you scared of? The dark.
It's spine-tingling fun on Disney Plus with Haunted Mansion and Goosebumps.
I'm gonna need you to spread the word.
Then feel the bone-chilling terror on Hulu with The Boogeyman and American Horror Story Delicate.
Something's happening to me.
The Disney Bundle with Hulu and Disney Plus. All of these and more streaming this month. Plans starting at $9.99 a month. 18 plus only. Access content from each service separately. Offer valid for eligible subscribers only. Terms apply.
From NJ.com and the Star Ledger, welcome to the Rutgers Rant, your one-stop podcast for the Scarlet Knights, with your hosts Steve Politti and Rutgers insiders Brian Fonseca and Pat Lenny. Let's start chopping.
All right, hello everybody. Welcome back to the Rutgers Rant. I can say this with all honesty, we have never had a more jammed-packed show. The bowl-eligible Scarlet Knights, first and foremost. We're going to talk about the win over Indiana. We're going to talk about a basketball scrimmage, live hoops action, a little wrestling media day chit chat. We've got a little women's soccer update, and we've got, fellas, I got to tell you this, and I'm not exaggerating. There's no hyperbole here. I have never seen anything like what happened at the end of that field hockey game in all my years following the sport, in all my minutes that I have. Brian, I know you were there, and we're going to talk about this at length later. We're going to have the one and only Candace Lanny on the show to try to explain, to sort this out, to sort out the controversy, to see if the sharpened pitchforks that are being aimed in the direction of the Big Ten over this should be even more sharp. But Brian, you were there. And have you ever seen anything like that in field hockey before?
In my many hours of my lifetime watching field hockey, I have never seen anything like that. I have never seen the outrage for anything the way I did. I've never heard of so many Dean Blandinos of field hockey who are outraged that Rutgers was robbed of this Big Ten title after watching approximately 5 minutes of field hockey in their entire lives. So many people who say that NJM does this and does that, begging me, Brian, what did the referee say? What was the explanation? Why are you not chasing them down with a pitchfork into the parking lot and demanding an answer? We'll get into all of that, but it's good for the sport of field hockey. I know everyone that was complaining yesterday.
Good for the sport.
Everyone complaining yesterday will be watching, tuned in for every game Rutgers will ever play in field hockey ever again. It has hooked a generation. Rutgers officially is a field hockey school.
Pat, what I loved about this, it seemed like it was just muscle memory. Like it was a good weekend for Rutgers. They're in the bowl, nothing to complain about. But then like it's like, what? We got screwed? And it was like, we got screwed. And then everyone is on Twitter. And then like someone says, all right, I'll find out why we got screwed. Let's just make sure that we're all on board with this. It was like really, it was quite a thing for like 15 minutes there.
The RU screw is real.
And in field hockey. It's
back in field hockey. Complete outrage, fully deserves to be there. I can't wait for Candace to come on and talk about it because she has no idea what happened.
Well, don't spoil it. I want to hear it from Candace. Okay, I don't want to hear from you.
All right, yeah, that's
your wording. Your field hockey wording is nothing here.
Let's move on.
We've got the one thing this show has is a field hockey expert. Damn it, we're going to use that today. Later in the show. That's all I'm going to say. You're going to have to stick with us talking football.
I just do want to say that you make a great point, that it seemed like everyone was like reflexively mad. Like something bad happened to Rutgers. And then they all kind of looked at each other and said,
it was great.
What bad happened to Rutgers? Someone tell me why I should be mad. They're all kind of punching into the air. Like you had a great response of someone is like, Steve, this is outrageous. And you're like, I'll be mad about it as soon as you explain to me why I should be outraged.
And trust me, I traffic in outrage, folks. This is like I built a career on it being out. Like I go to the Olympics and I watch something and like if some big gymnastics thing happens and like I have to turn to someone, I am prepared to be angry if you could just fill me in on the details. So I get it. I totally get it. This is one of those, and we're going to fill in the details. We're going to give you bullets in that gun, in that chamber, and those rifles and those torches later on the show. All right. Football though. Let's drive the bus to Indiana. Pat and I were out there, just a thorough, complete victory. And I trying to put it in perspective. And I went into Google and I was reading like what we wrote 4 years ago about where this team was. And I guess that's what gets lost here. Like, all of the narrative about this team after beating Indiana for their 6th win, the number of people who look, well, who have you guys beaten? They haven't beaten anybody. Yeah, it's kind of not the point. It's like where this program was, right? How far it had fallen to climb back to the point where a week before Halloween, you're bowl eligible. I mean, that's a big deal. That matters. Pat, you were there. You saw what how these players responded to the guys like Johnny Langan, who've been around forever.
Deion Jennings is another one of those guys that spoke after the game with Langan, the 6-year guys that made a decision to come back, use that final year of eligibility because they knew that this team was going to be special. They could feel it. You know, Johnny Langan made that bold prediction in the summer that this was going to be a bowl team, and finally got to see that to fruition, thankfully, because the poor guy would have just been sent out on a raft to never be seen again if Rutgers didn't go bowling. But yeah, to me, you could see how much it meant to everyone. You know, they're rolling their helmets like bowling balls. It's just such a happy moment, and especially happy for the guys that stuck through all those really hard times.
Yeah, and I mean, we've mentioned a bunch of them, but and then the way they won too. Again, Kyle Monungai, another huge day. Gavin Wimsatt, they couldn't throw the ball at all, and we'll talk about that. But the best running day ever for a Rutgers quarterback. It's always a good sign when you've got stats guru Jimmy Gill flipping to the back of the media guy during a game, trying to find out if this has ever happened before. Looking at guys in the 70s, but was he a quarterback? No, he was just trying to figure out if there's never been anybody who's done that. And Brian, we were there, and you watched the film, but there's this moment where well, they're going to have to eventually throw the ball to win this game, and then Gavin breaks out to the left, makes one cut, he runs for 80 yards. Like, oh, okay, no, they're not going to have to throw the ball to win this game at all. And that's kind of what, I mean, look, why throw it if you don't have to?
Yeah, I didn't get the tension, obviously, that you guys had watching it live. I knew the end result when I was watching back the tape. But even on the first drive of the game where Rutgers runs the ball 13 times in 15 plays and Indiana knows it's coming and they could do absolutely nothing to stop it, it was pretty obvious that Rutgers wants to run the ball anyway. And when you're dominating the way they did early on, that was kind of going to be the key to victory. I thought Kyle Monungai was awesome again. I mean, truly awesome. He impresses me more and more every week. He turns 2-yard gains into 6-yard gains, a tough guy to take down. He was an awesome blocker for Gavin Wimsatt. A lot of Gavin's big game, aside from that 80-yard run that he really did himself, was because Kyle was his lead blocker and just opening massive holes, blocking out one dude at a time, two dudes at a time, knocking over defensive backs like ragdolls. Yeah. Just incredible stuff from Kyle Monungai. And look, yes, Rutgers can beat these teams, as we said before, the Virginia Techs, the Temples, the Northwesterns, the Indianas, by just kind of using their strong running game, using their offensive line, taking advantage of their quarterback's athleticism. This is not going to be the formula to beat Ohio State or Penn State or Iowa, maybe Maryland, but it's good enough to win 6 games. It's good enough to go to a bowl game. It's interesting you mentioned that people are saying, they beat nobody. I've heard a lot of that recently. I've also heard a lot from the other side as an AP voter asking me why I didn't vote for Rutgers into the AP poll. So I'm kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place. The answer to that question is because they have beaten nobody. They have beaten nobody. Someone was like, Brian, look at the numbers. Be objective. Don't worry about being a homer. Rutgers' defensive numbers are great. Their offensive numbers, not so much. Anyway, the point being, you play the people in front of you. Rutgers has beaten every team they had to beat. They should have beaten. They've beaten everybody on their schedule that's going to have a losing record. Now, the next step is beating a team for the first time in the Big Ten that's going to finish the year with a winning record. But what they had to do this season, they accomplished their goal. They did everything they had to do. Now they're just playing with house money.
Pat, how much did the passing game worry you from that one? I mean, was it Gavin was off with a few throws, throwing them high? There were definitely a couple of drops. I mean, I thought there were three. There were definitely two drops at least. So we only throw 13 passes and two of them are dropped. That affects things greatly. And he made the one big throw on fourth down that he had to make. It was a great throw. Overall, I mean, do you just kind of shrug this one off, or you look real? Okay, this is a problem.
I don't shrug it off because some of the throws were just egregiously bad misses. But the positive was he didn't turn the ball over in a game where you could just run it down their throats. And conversely, like we said, obviously they were going to run the ball no matter what. They fully committed to that game plan, and you can't knock Rutgers for that. But absolutely, you have to be concerned about the passing game because you're not going to be able to run the ball 55 times against an Ohio State or Penn State and expect to be in the game, right? Like, that's a recipe for disaster. You're gonna be 3 and out every single time. You're gonna need to make some plays in the passing game. And Gavin was just missing open guys on crossing routes. The drops were a little bit concerning too, but it was a step back for the passing game. And it just got kind of buried under the carpet with all the celebration and the way they ran the ball. But for real keen observers, they knew how much Rutgers really struggled through the air in that game.
Okay, so you mentioned the next 4 games. I guess the one thing I will say, Brian, your point about beating no one is certainly valid. They have beaten no one by a margin of 22 points a game. So it's not, they are not, this is not like last year when they're, eking out wins over Temple, barely beat Boston College and needed the miracle drive to do that. They are winning convincingly. I think these next 4 games are going to show you where they're at. Certainly 2 of them are big asks, one of them in 2 weeks against Ohio State. That said, Ohio State's not the Ohio State it was when a few years ago, even last year. So that's a little different. Penn State certainly not putting up a lot of points. And Iowa, I mean, look, if you're only scoring, I don't care how good your defense is. If you're only scoring 12 points a game, you're beatable. Same with Maryland. They're beatable. So there are 2 opportunities, good opportunities for a win. And I think if you see this team is competitive in those games as well, I think you can reflect on this year being better than you thought.
Totally agree. I would say that the next 3 opponents are like from best to worst, kind of the same team in general, in the sense that not great offensively, and that's putting it mildly, obviously, with Iowa, and very good defensively. So Rutgers is really going to play the same game 3 times in a row, starting with the hardest against Ohio State. You saw it in the Ohio State-Penn State game this weekend. That was just an absolute rock fight, defensive battle. Until Marvin Harrison Jr. showed he was the best player on the field and scored the touchdown that opened things up. But I think there's a middle ground here between the teams that Rutgers beat, the nobodies, which to your point, right, they demolished them, right? The elite teams, the Ohio States and Penn States. Penn State's offense is not great, but I still put them in the elite category. And then now that they have 2 more middle ground teams in Iowa and Maryland. Those are the 2 teams that Rutgers needs to pick off at least one of them. That to me would be a very big sign of like Rutgers has taken another step forward. And if you beat one of those 2 teams, you're talking about a better bowl game than the Pinstripe Bowl. So I think the next 2 games are kind of be competitive, put a scare, do what you have to do, expect to lose. The 2 games after that really are kind of here's Rutgers' opportunity to really make a statement.
Pat, you agree with that?
Yeah, but I just think that when you play Iowa, you have a legitimate chance to win because of exactly what you said. If you can't score points, you can't win a game. And Iowa has just completely fallen off since Cade McNamara got hurt. Plain and simple. They couldn't do anything against Minnesota, who wasn't a juggernaut. So I think the Iowa game is very winnable. You can't look at that one and just be like, oh, Rutgers doesn't have a shot. I think Rutgers has a really good shot against Iowa, and I think matches up really well. It's just going to be one of those defensive games. It might set football back 100 years, but it's going to be interesting and one to see. And you know what? Rutgers can take the next step also against Ohio State by not getting blown out.
Yep, absolutely.
It's the one game the one opponent left in the Big Ten that Rutgers hasn't been competitive with yet. I think Rutgers can feel good with a competitive loss in that game and then go into Iowa with a chance to really make this a special season.
Yeah, I guess. And someone did ask me, is it because I wrote a really positive column. I think obviously program's trending up. Greg Schiano is your, he has earned the right to be your Steve Peichel and get a contract that's going to carry you through until he's done coaching. I think that's pretty obvious to me. Some people ask, well, does that change with 4 straight losses? And my answer to that is easy answer, no. But then the short answers are, what are the 4 losses? Are you getting blown out by both Ohio State and Penn State again? Can you not score at all? I mean, are you putting up bagels in these games? Is your offense a complete no-show in these games? And do you have a shot? Can you not just pick one of those goals? Can you at least have a shot against those 2 teams? And I think, that to me is going to be really it's going to be a good indication of where this team is. Rutgers is relatively healthy. They have shown some at times in the passing offense. We haven't seen it, certainly lately, and see it last week, but they've shown they can throw the ball when they've had to against Michigan. They've played better defenses and played well. I want to see that again in these last 4 games to really take this, because I picked 5 and 7, so they've already exceeded my expectations. All right, take it to the next level for me. Show that you're even better than just another bowl team in college football.
To add to that, I think individually it's a good proving ground for Gavin Wimsatt, as we've talked about with the passing struggles against Indiana, the passing struggles against Michigan and Wisconsin, where in both games he threw a back-breaking interception. He's playing 3 really good defenses in the next 3 weeks. No one's expecting him to dominate, but this could be an opportunity for him to prove that he can be a competent quarterback, does not throw an interception, can move the ball against them, and has, the base of a quarterback that next year can take a really big step forward and bring Rutgers again to the next level. So I think and also, again, the running game has been good against these bad teams. Can it do it against Iowa, Penn State, Ohio State? It's a very good proving ground with not much to lose. So really good opportunities for Rutgers.
All right, let's do true or false. I'm going to put you on the spot right away on true or false. We're going to get to nitty gritty here. See what you guys think. See where the predictions are going to go. Here it is. True or false? Rutgers will win another game this season. Pat, true or false? No hedging. Will they win another game?
True. I thought they were going to beat Iowa in the preseason.
That's right.
It's even better now.
You're the only one among us who they've met your expectations, not exceeded your expectations. You thought they go 6-6. So good for you. True. Brian, true or false? Rutgers will win another game this season.
Let the record show that Pat is wearing Iowa colors right now. So I'm very confused whether he is an Iowa homer or Iowa hater.
It's actually Michigan. It's navy blue. It's tough to see in this horrible lighting.
Fair enough. Well, I don't want to talk about horrible lighting. All right, fair enough. I will say true. I think they have a chance against Iowa. I think they have a chance against Maryland. I was the original, they have a chance against the Ohio State guy. Again, backing off that a little bit, I think they're going to pick off somebody in the next 4 games.
There you go. All right, we're all on board. I think so too. True. They've shown me something this year that they are not done. So we're all on board. We're all riding this bandwagon. Along those lines, true or false? Rutgers is going to the Pinstripe Bowl. Stop looking at hotels. Stop pricing the MGM Grand, Politi. Stop looking at the downtown area in Vegas. Rutgers is going to the Pinstripe Bowl. True or false, Pat?
Unfortunately, true.
Brian, you agree? True? False?
I am begging Kyle Bonagura to be the most right person in America because he has had Rutgers going to Vegas for 6 straight weeks in his projections. I think Rutgers has to beat at least one more team, maybe 2 teams to escape the Pinstripe Bowl. It seems like everyone really wants to see Rutgers at Yankee Stadium. I'm with you guys. I unfortunately will say true.
No, you're not with me. I'm saying false. We're going to Vegas. Absolutely. You got to believe. And I'm saying false because 2 things. I think they're going to win one more game. They've been 7-5. And then you look at the other teams and look, I mean, Greg Schiano has got some contacts. He can twist some arms. Rutgers can guarantee it's not just about the best team. It's about, a new opponent making some guarantees. I think the idea of having the New York market against Utah, I am just throwing everything I can now, folks. I'm doing the best I can to stay positive about us in Vegas before the holidays. I'm going to say true. We'll see what happens.
Let's get a nice middle ground going. How about Nashville?
When's that game?
Music City?
December 30th, or I could do that. Sure. That sounds good.
Probably nice weather at that time of year. Never been down there, so.
Nashville, all right. We can do Nashville. My in-laws live in Tennessee, so I could see them over the holidays. That'd be nice. All right. True or false? Kyle Monangai is the first team all Big Ten running back. Pat, is he going to get the honors?
I'm going to say false.
Okay. Brian?
I'm going to say false. Blake Corum probably is going to be the top running back, and if it's between a Rutgers guy and another guy, I just have to think that the Rutgers guy is not going to get the benefit of the doubt.
Maybe they want to punish Michigan. Is it possible they could take the Big Ten's going to come out and say, I don't know, it's throwing spitballing. But you're probably right. I'll say false as well. True or false? The defensive MVP, Rutgers, Mo Toure. Pat, true or false?
True. And I'll throw a out there second pick. Robert Longerbeam has been fantastic in coverage and killing it in the pass breakup game. So he would be my second choice.
Brian?
This is a tough time to do it because he had a brutal game on Saturday. But I thought Flip Dixon was their best defender before last Saturday. So that's going to be my pick. So I'll go false. But Mo Toure definitely on the podium. He's been unbelievable off that torn ACL.
I will say this. It's for me. It's still you're leaving off Tariq Powell, who's just been excellent as well. Maybe Mo Toure a little bit more visibly excellent. So for me, they are at this point. But yeah, I mean, he had a great game against Indiana. All right, true or false? Gavin Wimsatt isn't the problem in the passing game. His receivers are. We've talked about this a million times. Pat, true or false?
False. It's his accuracy still is a problem.
Brian?
False. Totally agree with Pat. 2 drops on Saturday that were pretty rough with Dremel and Langan, but I mean, some of his throws were 4 feet above his receiver's head. That's no receiver is going to catch some of those.
Yeah, I guess you're right. I'll say false, but I do think that you just keep on waiting to see one of these guys just emerge. I get it. Drummond's been great. But why I say Washington, man, he makes some great catches and then he disappears. I don't understand that. So I'm going to say false, but with a caveat asterisk there. All right, 2 more. True or false? Michigan will be hit with significant sanctions from the sign stealing investigation. Pat.
Yeah, I mean, I am wearing my Michigan blue and maize for a reason, because no, they will not be.
Yeah. Brian?
I agree. There's no precedent for this, but what would the punishment even be?
I don't know. I think Connor Stallions is going to be in deep trouble, though. He's going to have to ride his horse. I have no idea. It's a great question. Yeah.
Vacated wins would be an extreme punishment. Lost scholarships.
They are pretty defiant. I read some of the stories out of there. They do not care. They're like, oh, you want to take you, whatever. They're not coming out and saying, oh, we did something wrong. They're saying, nope, we are. So that's interesting take after that win over Michigan State. Unapologetic and clearly, by the way, the best team in the Big Ten now. I've come around on that one. My goodness.
Brutal day in East Lansing with, I'm sure you guys saw the Adolf Hitler trivia question on the scoreboard.
I almost put that as a true or false. True or false. Hitler trivia is good for a college football game. But I've learned that no, there is no good time for an Adolf Hitler joke. That's something that I've learned after 25 years in this business. But yeah, that was something else. My gosh. What happened there?
They blamed a third party, which you always do.
when something happens with Nazis, blame a third party.
Yeah. So they like fired a guy or something, or suspended him with pay because you have to go through some investigation to find out why Adolf Hitler is on the scoreboard of your stadium. Just a hell of a headline. When I see it on our sister site M Live, Michigan State apologizes for Adolf Hitler sighting on the scoreboard. No one's going to write a better headline than that.
That's going to click that one.
It was very much clicked. And I do want to also say, to address this, I'm pretty sure it's sarcastic comment I've gotten. Rutgers is not going to get a win against Michigan because of this sign stealing scandal. And they're not going to get a better bowl game because of it. They're not going to Vegas because Michigan stole some signs just to squash that.
Everyone's still waiting for the NCAA selection committee to take into account the Ohio State robbery in that game. Yeah, just know that, they've already moved on. You're totally right. All right, finally, the most pleasant surprise from the Rutgers hoop scrimmage, JaMychal Davis. Brian, you take that one since neither one of us were there. True or false?
Well, I would hope that you were reading my in-depth, live, breathless coverage to know that the answer to this is true. I was very impressed with JaMychal Davis. Easily the brightest spot of the day for Rutgers.
All right. Can you give us a quick recap on what your thoughts were? I mean, it looked like they were down early, but, an impressive second half performance.
Yeah, the first 15 minutes or so were St. John's completely dominating, suffocating Rutgers. I had a line in my original story that I scrapped at the gun of Rutgers wants to play fast, but they were getting sped up by St. John's because St. John's was pressing every inbound, and Andre Hyatt and Oscar Palmquist and everyone trying to get the ball had no answer for it. I mean, just they were getting completely suffocated. St. John's went up by 18 at the half. They looked like an infinitely better team. And then in the second half, Rutgers completely flipped the switch, pushed the ball in transition. Jermichael Davis looked completely like he belonged. Best player on the floor. That's what ESPN's NBA guy, Jonathan Gavoni, called him. I totally agree. He was Rutgers' best player. Did not look like a 3-star freshman, pushing the ball in pace, really athletic, dunking, getting rebounds, blocked a shot. I thought he was really good. I thought Gavin Griffiths settled in the second half, struggled a little bit in the first half, struggled the whole game defensively, to be honest. I thought Cliff was awesome. I thought Cliff should have gotten more shots. He hasn't exactly expanded his game from what I saw, but everything he did well yet last year was better. He had a tough matchup in Joel Soriano and really kept up with him. Just a couple things that are alarming. Shooting was bad. 3-point shooting was bad. They missed their first 11 threes. I think they only hit 3 of them. Noah Fernandes had a nice one in transition to help cut the St. John's deficit, but really discouraging there. Free throws were brutal. They could have sealed the game a couple times on the free throw line. Couldn't do it. They couldn't get that key rebound in overtime when St. John's was shooting a 3 to tie it. They had 3 opportunities. They couldn't get it. St. John's ties the game at the buzzer. And to finish up, when they hit that, the place went absolutely nuts. Atmosphere was terrific. There were maybe 3,000 people in there, but it felt like a regular season game. Just really good atmosphere that is going to help Rutgers a lot because you get a bunch of different situations. You go down big early, you come all the way back, you play 2 overtimes, you're playing in a real atmosphere. Steve Pikiell got to experiment a little bit, and I think overall, about as good a day as you could have hoped for if you're Rutgers, aside from maybe winning. But yeah, I think even Rick Pitino said that he'd rather win this way than win by 20, because this way his team learns a lot. I tend to think Rutgers learned a lot on Saturday.
Sort of fascinating because I come out of this and I thought I had a pretty good grasp for what the rotation was going to be, but reading your story and knowing that, you still didn't have a couple of, especially Mowat Mag, you still didn't have a key player here. I mean, did it change your opinion of what you're going to see? Are they going to play 9 players in a game, or what? He has not done that recently.
I think a lot of it was experimentation. Oscar Palmquist was in the end at crunch time. I don't think that's going to happen in an actual game, especially if Rutgers has full health. Obviously, Mowat Mag is going to play, once he's healthy, 28, 30 minutes. So I don't think they have a really solid lineup yet. I don't think they would have played their best rotation or whatever it is on Saturday. It was a lot about experimentation. So no, I don't think so. The only person, again, is I think Jermichael Davis will play more minutes than I had expected.
Is he a starter?
No.
Or starter level. He has not supplanted Fernandes in your mind.
Correct. I don't think so. I think he'd even be the third guard. If we're saying a fully healthy roster, I would start Noah Fernandes, Derek Simpson, Gavin Griffiths, Mowat Mag, Cliff Omori. Maybe you start Andre Hyatt instead of Derek Simpson and bring him off the bench. I just think in all that calculation, I'm not quite ready to put Jermichael Davis in there yet, but he could be the second guy off the bench, third guy off the bench, real spark plug kind of guy. When they need a guy to drive the ball to the rim, push the ball in transition, he can really add a change of pace that they don't have besides maybe Derek Simpson.
The Helix is coming. That's right. Ground is broken, foundations are being laid, and the plans are being realized. For those that have not yet heard, the Helix is a new innovation district in New Brunswick, New Jersey. Smack dab in the middle of the Northeast Corridor, the Helix is a place for innovators to gather and innovation to take action. It offers a range of physical environments, a vibrant innovation community, and a strategic central location in close proximity to New York, Philly, Boston, and D.C. The Helix will uniquely mix workspaces, classrooms, laboratories, venues, and collaborative environments, creating a dynamic community and setting for innovative minds. Universities, startups, Fortune 500 companies, entrepreneurs, researchers, and many others are already signing up to call the Helix home. Thus far, the Helix has assembled a community of innovative private and public organizations such as Rutgers Health, the New Jersey Innovation Hub, RWJ Barnabas Health, Hackensack Meridian Health, universities from Ireland and Israel, and others. The Helix is coming. Visit helixnj.com to learn more.
All right. Good job breaking down the basketball. Let's do some questions from our readers before we get Candace on here to talk field hockey. Again, thanks everyone for subscribing and for filling our text service with good insights. So here's a big picture question from Brian in Piscataway. I'm sorry, Brian in Parsippany. Which was more impressive, the original build in 5 years or this rebuild in 4 years? He's obviously talking about Greg Schiano taking the program from the basement to the Louisville game. Now he's taking it 4 years from, a similar spot competitively, at least, to this would be the equivalent of the Inside Bowl. This is sort of where they are in fourth year. I guess that's my answer. I got to see what they do in the 5th year, but what do you guys think? Is this more impressive than the first time around?
I think it is because the competition is greater, right? Like in that first stint, you had some not walkover games in the Big East, but every week wasn't necessarily the level of beat your brains in Big Ten football. Not that this year has been either, but I think for that reason alone, like you're still playing blue blood juggernaut programs in the second stint in the Big Ten, and that makes it a little bit more difficult.
Yeah, I'll buy that, Brian. They didn't get good the first time around until they ditched Miami and Virginia Tech in the Big East. That said, I do think that they were further down. They didn't have the facilities the first time around. The recruiting, the program, the talent-wise, Greg Schiano inherited the first time around. There was no Bo Melton in that. It was basically Division I AA, which was at the time. Where do you fall on this one?
So I obviously wasn't around for the first time. I was 5 years old when he took over the job for the first time.
But this is why we hate you, by the way. This is why we do Boomer Zoomer for that. But go on, please. Don't let me interrupt.
It's okay. This is why you don't feel bad when I don't know who Perry Van Winkle or whoever random person you pick is for. That was the first old name.
Kevin, like Kevin Klein. You can't possibly expect who Kevin blockbuster movie star Kevin Klein is. I get it because he wasn't born in 1998. Go on, please. Don't let me interrupt you. I'm sorry.
I forgot what I was even going to say. So I wasn't around for the first rebuild, but it wasn't proven the first time he did it. No one had ever shown that Rutgers could win to this extent the first time around. Greg was in his mid-30s. He had so much going against him to do it. I thought the build was just so much harder in so many respects the first time around. And I think it's not fair to compare it to 06 yet because, one, that was more years down the road. And two, that's a pretty high mark to reach. I think if I compare this to where they are to your point, the 05 year where they finally broke through to the bowl game, I would say the first time was slightly more impressive. I think this time is pretty impressive in its own right. But I would say, again, from what I've read and what I understand, the first time was very difficult. This time a little less so because he proved it. He showed he could do it at Rutgers. It's easier to convince parents and players come here and do it at Rutgers when you could say, I did this 15 years ago too. So
pretty good tiebreaker, beat Ohio State. And then I will change my mind on this. That's pretty, I know it sounds crazy, but yeah, you want Pandemonium Piscataway. That would be pretty pandemonic. Pandemonic? Is that a word? It is now. All right.
Bigger than Louisville, right? Easily. If they beat Ohio State.
Yes, I think so. Yes, Pat.
Certainly more, and a certainly more iconic blue blood program. Ohio,
a better team too, right?
I don't know. That Louisville team is pretty good too.
I know.
But no, I don't actually. I disagree because Ohio State is still offensively challenged this year.
God, it's Ohio State. Okay,
I know they have Marvin Harrison Jr. and they're offensively challenged.
They've won every game they've played 58-0 against Rutgers. All right. I understand what you're saying. It maybe just because of the hype, Empire State Building, Mike and the Mad Dog. It was such a big moment. National TV, the only game on, got you into helped you get in the Big Ten. I get that, but man.
To Pat's point, what I agree with Pat here is that Rutgers was going for a Big East title that year. They were undefeated. They could have played for a national championship, maybe, if they had gone the whole length of the way. Maybe that's a bit hyperbolic, but they were in it. They were going to be a top 10 team. If they beat Ohio State, they'll be ranked, which is a big deal. But I guess to Pat's point, like the result, the game itself would be easily the biggest one they've had as far as the quality of opponent. I would say what it means for the season they're in is not as big as the Louisville game, if that makes sense.
That does make sense. It's a very good analysis for someone who wasn't barely alive, had a diapers the first time. I'm going to move on from that.
I was 10 years old for the Louisville game. 10 years old.
Oh, whatever. Same thing. All right. Another question about the old day. What was the reaction from the guys who've been there since Chris Ash and seeing the lows of the program to now making a bowl game? Someone like Langen, how much they've built this program is so impressive, and they should get the proper respect for all they've done and been through. Couldn't agree more with that. And Pat, I guess what I will say is that we've been here through guys who thought they were going to be that guy, like a Darius Hamilton. Like I'm trying to think of some guys who were like, "All right, I'm staying. I'm gonna be that guy." And there's nothing more depressing than when you're interviewing those players and just another lost season, just another 4-8 on the pile. And you can kind of see that it's just tough. That's not the case there. There was a lot of happiness in Bloomington.
There really was, Deion Jennings, I thought said it best when he was like, listen, I didn't have to come back, but I did. I made this choice because I wanted to play for these guys. And Langen said the same thing, obviously, too. I'm sure those other guys that you mentioned thought it, no question. But these guys were brought to campus in the Chris Ash era. So they were buying into some narrative that who only knows what they were buying into at that point. They knew they could see what was in front of them. So I just think, just to bring it back, I just think that this question is 100% right in the aspect of yes, it was such a happy moment for those guys, and they truly deserve all the praise and respect, really, for hanging in there through all the hard times.
Good answer.
Follow up. I obviously wasn't there, so I'm curious what you guys. I saw a lot of the social media videos. Greg getting the Gatorade bath. Guys, like Pat said, bowling their helmets. Gavin Wimp said bowling at football in the locker room and everyone falling like pins. Johnny Langen screaming, "We're going bowling, we're going bowling." I know sometimes the press conference room is right next to the locker room. Was that the case in Indiana? Could you hear them celebrating?
No. It was kind of it was in I think a different corner. It was a nice press room, don't get me wrong, but everyone was still very giddy, of course, but it was a little more subdued than that locker room scene, which was just iconic.
Yeah, and social media team at Rutgers does a really great job of bringing some of those moments from inside there. And Shiano's dance, I do think the difference of people who say, "Oh, he's a different person than first time around," I would argue that is not true. In many ways, that he's still kind of the same guy, and in the good ways too, not just But I don't know that Greg Schiano 1.0 does whatever that dance was. I mean, and then, excuse me. Let me say, he might have done the dance. I do not know that Greg Schiano 1.0 lets that dance get into the universe, get into the world. I mean, and if you hadn't seen it, go on to their social media channels and watch. It's just like a fun. I mean, it's your crazy uncle at a wedding reception. You're like, "Hey, look at Uncle Greg. You see that?" It was just really funny, and it was nice. It was good. Of course, you should be excited. You qualify for a bowl is what you should be. But from the image of football coach, I am the program leader. I'm the CEO. That's not usually what you expect from Greg.
Our colleague at USA Today, Christian Dyer, talked to a former Dancing with the Stars competitor and asked them to rank how Greg Schiano's dance did. Before I tell you what he said, I want you guys to tell me, out of 10, how would you rate Greg Schiano's dance moves?
I thought you were going to try to get me to see if I could zoom or identify whoever this boomer zoomer this person is. That I didn't read the story. Out of the 10, I'm going to give him a 4. What do you think, Pat?
I'm going to go a little bit higher, but a 7, because it took so much for him to let loose like that, in my opinion. That was full blown, just pure. His soul was speaking to the world with that dance. So I grade it from that perspective, how much he was able to just transcend with that artistic take.
What's the answer?
So I do want to say that the reaction of the players when he does jump in, that almost in disbelief and excitement, it's awesome. It's awesome to see that kind of stuff. That's why these guys spend months and months in the weight room and practicing and watching film and all that tedious things to be able to enjoy that. The answer, his name is Rashad Jennings, a former Rutgers.
Oh, cool. I would know who that was. Yes. Okay.
Played 3 years for the Giants, 7th round pick out of Liberty, Dancing with the Stars champion, not just a participant, champion.
Really?
Let me read you this quote again. It's from Christian of Rutgers Wire, our colleague on the beat. 8 out of 10, Jennings told Rutgers Wire. Supreme confidence, great timing, played to the crowd. Just not sure it was dancing, but it got the people going.
I'm sure it was dancing. That's wonderful. Good stuff. All right. That's a good quote. Love it. So the soul, they could feel the soul there. That's good job by Christian getting that story. Nice stuff. All right. Joe at the Shore. Shouldn't we want to root for the Pinstripe Bowl? There'll be a lot of alums and fans who can make the day trip. I'd feel like it'd be a home game, and it's at an iconic venue. Assuming the Rutgers is good or even better in the future, once the schedule changes, Rutgers should be able to elevate to bigger bowls. I feel like it's short-sighted not to want to go to the Pinstripe Bowl now. Joe, I must say I disagree, but you fellas see any value to what he's saying about big crowd there, iconic venue, anything?
I just think you want to try something new. When you've been to the Pinstripe Bowl twice already, you've experienced it. Why not try something new? And why not long for a new experience? And if it's the Las Vegas Bowl, what could be better than that?
I agree with Pat. Definitely from our perspective. I've never covered a Pinstripe Bowl. I hope I never have to. I don't want to be in the bitter cold of Yankee Stadium, which iconic venue for baseball. I think it's a bit of a stretch to call it an iconic venue for football.
It's a crappy venue for football. I think that's the right word.
I would say there's benefits to Rutgers in multiple ways in that they don't have to travel anywhere. So you cut costs there. I don't know how much of the gate they would make, but a lot more Rutgers fans would show up, which would probably gain them some more revenue. So that's two ways they can both save and make money. The atmosphere will be better. Again, there'll be a lot more Rutgers fans there than, say, Vegas or Nashville or, heaven forbid, Detroit. So I think for Rutgers, there's a lot of benefits. I think for literally everyone else and the fans who live close and want to go and can't travel otherwise, there's benefits for them. I think for literally everyone else, we want to go to Vegas.
Viva Las Vegas. All right. Rob D has a good question. Rob D, my friend from the upper deck. Last row, baby. That's where I'm watching these games if I had tickets. Rob D wants to know, with the bowl bid set, expectations exceeded, do you see RU coming out with a different offense after the bye, i.e. let Gavin fix ACC issues? I don't know what that means. Anyway, yes. So do you think this is going to be a different? It's got to be, right?
Accuracy issues. That's what
accuracy issues. Yes, makes sense.
No, there's no secret offense. Please,
but different play calling. You're not going to run it 50 times. You got to have something for Ohio State that's not that, right?
Well, I mean, you probably have to run the ball and kill clock, and most importantly, not throw an interception, not throw a pick six, not give Ohio State more possessions. And I think, yes, to win, you got to hope that Gavin makes some big time throws. That's no doubt about that. But how many opportunities are you going to give him to take those big time throws? I can't think that many.
I mean, one thing we've learned though from Greg, he's not trying to lose this game 24-3. He's going to try to win the game, right, Pat? I mean, to win the game, he's got to throw the ball.
Yeah, I actually think Rob D has a good point here. They might let Gavin throw the ball a little bit more and try to open things up when you're playing with house money, because that's how you develop as a quarterback. Like, you're not going to take the next step handing the ball off 55 times, right? So, or 30 times, whatever it was. If you're going to beat Iowa, why not try to score some points, right? Like, why not try to open it up a little bit? I think this is a good opportunity to not reinvent the wheel with the offense. They're not going to do that. This is still going to be a team that runs the ball, plays great defense, and plays special teams. They're not going to lose their identity. But I would like to see Rutgers try to put Gavin in some better positions to grow and learn and show us what he's actually really capable of throwing the ball. I think it's a great point.
All right, to follow up to that before we move on, I think it's just a good kind of question. Pump for the win, and it will preface it that I feel Wimsatt has been an asset to this team. That being said, my question is, if we had even an average passing game, is this Rutgers team in the top 25? As you noted, it received one. It is in the others receiving vote category, not votes category. Got one vote because we'd have the leading rusher in the Big Ten. You can count on one hand how many sacks the O-line's let up. We have a top 15 defense and a plethora of NFL talent, a 5-star kicker. He goes on and on, explaining, wondering if it would be in the top 25 with an average passing game. Brian, what do you think?
Yes, because if they had an average passing attack, they would have beaten Wisconsin. And if they had beaten Wisconsin, they would have been 7-1 and gotten my vote at least. I can't speak to the other voters. I would have voted for Rutgers in 24, 25, 23 range, and that almost certainly would have gotten them in the top 25.
Like, James Madison is in the top 25, right?
Is it really?
It's not always necessarily about when you do rankings, it's not always necessarily like, oh, this team is going to beat this team. Sometimes you have to reward teams for having a great season, like James Madison or Air Force is still ranked, right? Like it's about getting some respect too. So, but top 25, if the passing game was better, to answer that question, Brian's 100% right. They would have beat Wisconsin and been at 7-1 here at the bye week. So that would have definitely been a top 25 team.
All right. Last two questions. One really want to know. I've got a great question. Why in the world would you eat the nasty looking press box lasagna? That's a good point. We were in Bloomington again. We rank, and we're going to do this. Pat and I were talking about this. Brian, we haven't told you this yet, but in one show we have nothing to talk about. This is not the week, but once we have nothing to talk about, we're going to rank. We're going to do a draft. We're going to do a snake draft of Big Ten cities because we're ripping Bloomington. We're just relentlessly driving to this game. Just all over Bloomington. And then but as we're driving, I'm like, as much as I'm killing Bloomington, it might be a top half Big Ten city, Big Ten town. I'm not sure if it is or not, but that's the first point. But the second point is they put out this food out there, put Italian food out 2 trips in a row. The first year it was lasagna, and I ate the press block lasagna, and I just felt like I was going to die, like during the game. The second part is they put out a plate of chicken Alfredo that looked like it was glue, like Elmer's. If you took Elmer's glue, that was the color of the chicken. I can't describe it the other way. It was terrible. None of us ate it, except I did see one person eat it. JPO from the radio, Julian Phoenix, was eating this thing. And he had a big plate, and I just looked over him and said, "You got to do the second half. You're going to be on the radio with Chris Carlin. There's no backup. They can't pull Teal off. They can't bring in Eric LeGrand. This is just you." And he says, I trust my stomach. Is that what he said? Something like that. It was a great line.
Regardless. He said it wasn't that bad too.
He said it was pretty good. Montclair dude, a guy I lives, from the town I live in. I like it, but man, I gotta question some judgment there, man.
I'm all in on the ranking the Big Ten cities and the Big Ten press boxes. I take pride in eating every press box meal that's put in front of me. So I would have to jog some memory. I'd be glad to do it. I got to say, I am disappointed in you guys. 1, it doesn't sound like you guys stopped at Nick's English Hut. And 2, it sounds like you guys didn't stop at St. Elmo's. What is going on, fellas? How do you botch
just
that?
Just a disgrace. You tell him I'm depressed about it.
We did stop at St. Elmo and Harry and Izzy's, and because the Colts were home, the city was just overrun. We couldn't get a table, no bar seats available. We stayed in Indianapolis, obviously, so the place in Bloomington was a no-go too. It was not good. It was not good. But,
this is the analysis.
It was short-sighted.
Indianapolis.
We should have known.
It was short-sighted. We should have had a reservation. But the thing with Indianapolis, and this is what I finally figured out. I've been there a million times. It's a city with 8 huge hotels and also 8 restaurants. That's it. So everyone goes to the same 8 places to eat, and one of them, of course, is St. Elmo. So we couldn't fight that fight.
Yeah, it was an hour. It was an hour to get a table. So.
All I'm saying is you guys knew this date has been on the table for
I know
9 months, 10 months. It takes 1 second to make a resi. I'm just
I tried 3 weeks ago. I tried. All right. I'm just dying for this moment. I got to talk field hockey expert to tell us if we're all crazy. Candace Lanny, could you interrupt whatever she's doing that is more important than this, which would literally be anything.
Yes,
we're gonna bring her in.
The not good Lanny is leaving, and I will be back in 2 minutes. Candace, the real good Lanny, will be back in 2 minutes.
All right, we've got Candace here. So I didn't watch this. So Brian, you're gonna have to ask the question. Although unless you want the questions to be very simple, was Rutgers screwed? Is that a good question? Is that the right question, Brian?
It's an excellent question, in my opinion. I could not think of a more awful way to lose. Honestly, watching that game, how tough, just heartbreaking loss. Brian, I have some questions for you about this since I know that you were physically there. But to me, that was a real, just heartbreaker.
I will answer any questions you have, but I want to go first. So I'm assuming you watched the decisive play where Rutgers has the 5th penalty stroke. They score the goal. Everyone goes nuts. BTN Plus has the graphic. Rutgers wins a share of the Big Ten. Everyone's jumping around, and then whoop, the ref goes to the review and says, no good. What happened?
Well, that's my question to you as well. So I don't know what happened there. To me, there was no foul on the play, right? It was very clean. The attacker took the ball down. She didn't obstruct the goalie. The goalie didn't foul her, obviously. It was really clean. The only thing I could think of is that maybe the 8 seconds expired. But otherwise, I don't know. I don't know what it could be. And I was expecting the ref to share more, which I'm sure she did with the teams. I don't know if that info got relayed to you, but I was pretty disappointed as a spectator to just have that type of a decision. I mean, it was a game turner, right? Like it changed the entire outcome of the game and the season for many of those girls. So it's just, to me, right? Like, what a tough way to lose.
Yeah. So for transparency, I was there. I did not interview the losing head coach after the game. I didn't do my job. I thought I'm not going to write an obituary about this. So I didn't ask Meredith Civico, and I did not chase the referees to the parking lot like everyone in my mentions wanted me to. But
you failed. In other words, just Candace, so just to be clear, you failed. I just want to make you say journalistically, you should have been there and to call you. Okay, that's fine. So it's too late now, obviously.
I'm not sure who failed more, me or the refs. In my defense, I did not think that the entire Rutgers alumni base was suddenly enormous field hockey fans.
Yeah.
I should have figured everyone is huge fans of the RU screw and complaining about it. But to answer your question, from what I understand, is the same interpretation. The shot. So I think you're supposed to, it's not when you get your shot off, like in basketball, it's does the ball cross the line before the 8 seconds? And it sounds like the ball did not cross the line before the shot clock ended.
Maybe we can make a recommendation for next year in these broadcasts that they have the shot clock or visible, right? It would be nice to see. I don't know if they have that at the actual game, but that type of detail as well would be, I think the fans would appreciate it. Even, just watching from home. But I think you have to be right. There was nothing else that I saw that could have possibly overturned that call.
I'm with
the
you.
Ball has to cross the line before. How do they ever know that without looking at? Was there a shot clock visible someplace on the field?
So there's not NFL level technology at the Bauer Track and Field Complex, just so you guys know. I totally agree with you. There should be a shot clock on the broadcast. There should be a mic on the referee announcing her decision the way they do on the football field. But they didn't make the call on the field. I'm not sure if Northwestern challenged or if the referees decided to check it themselves, but they went and checked it after. They were there for a decent amount of time. It looked like, I'm guessing that their views with Chicago and the Big Ten office showed them a shot clock, and they could kind of, I have a video of the full play. I can Zapruder it later and kind of try to see myself. But I have to think they have some sort of technology to figure it out. And that must have been it. And it must be like clear and obvious, because I don't think they'd overturn it if there was any doubt.
I would hope not, right? I agree. So, well, let us know if you come to a different conclusion.
Have you, so people who weren't listening last time Candace was on, she was an Ivy League player, Princeton, a captain, 4-time Ivy League champion. Have you in your career ever suffered a loss on penalties in that way?
Well, to clarify first, the rules have changed quite a bit since I was there. So this new shootout process didn't actually exist when I was playing. So it is new, and I believe it's probably designed to more closely align with the NFL, right? And ice hockey and kind of that overtime sudden death process. But when I was there, the penalty stroke in its true sense, in its true definition of name, was how we went through overtime and really decided these endeavors. So it wasn't common then, right? How many games this year has Rutgers gone through? 1 overtime, 2 overtimes, we're going through the shootout. I've never seen so many games in a single regular season go to that extent. So I personally have not lost in a penalty stroke shootout like that in such a heartbreaking fashion, with so much on the line for a team who has just been building over the last few years. I thought they played incredibly well this game. They dominated the possession for most of it, and I thought they looked really, really good. Both teams did. So I'm eager to see how they bounce back from this as well. But to point blank answer your question, I don't think I've had anything quite as devastating.
So the answer to your question is 4. This is their 4th shootout, their first loss in a shootout. They could still win the Big Ten if Maryland beats Northwestern Thursday and Rutgers beats Iowa in Iowa Friday. So a lot has to go right, but hope is still alive in Piscataway.
That's possible.
It's possible. It's not impossible. Maybe Northwestern rests on their laurels, takes a long week of drinking, and doesn't show up to the game on Thursday. So was there anything else controversial or anything that stuck out to you when you're watching the game that you think we as field hockey fanatics should know about?
Well, like I mentioned, I thought both teams were really strong, really great possession, very clean games, really good scoring opportunities. The one on the point of controversial, the one thing that also really struck me was, again, in the penalty shootout stage, it seemed as though each team was only given one opportunity to review a play, right? And Rutgers had asked for a second on one of those final goals, I think. And
it was the one right before it was. So they went 5-5. Then they went to a second round where each team goes 1-1, sudden death. Puck Winter missed hers. I can't know exactly what they were asking to challenge, but they were furiously asking the referees to look it over, and the referees just did not want to do it.
Exactly. So that to me, I think, is also an interesting point of contention that I wonder whether or not the league will review, like, is that the right role for next year, especially in those types of games, right? If we flash forward to the NCAA playoffs, right, in the tournament, could you imagine getting into that position with that high of stakes? What if we're in the championship game, something's not reviewed, the ref misses it, the angles are tough, right? The fouls are really sometimes small and hard to see. And so I'm wondering if anything might change on that side. But that was the other thing that really kind of caught my attention from a rules perspective.
It's interesting you say the possession, because I did watch the first half, and I was wondering if that, as a hockey fan, if you have puck possession is a big deal. New analytics, Corsi is a stat where it measures, and this is one of the things you knew the Devils were going to be good because they had the puck the entire game. So is that still the same for field hockey? Because it really did look like, based on what I watched, and believe me, talking out of my butt already just by bringing this up, but it looked like they had the ball more than Northwestern throughout that first half.
They did, absolutely, in the first half. And it can be a sign of the better team, right? Or who is dominating the play, who has control, very much so. But it doesn't matter if you can't score, right? And if you can't finish. So passing it around the backfield, I thought Rutgers did a really nice job of that. And they do that in order to spread out the defense, in order to switch fields, in order to find those holes to go and attack. But then it's really important to actually go and attack and finish on those opportunities. So yes, important. But if you can't score, you can't score, and you're going to lose.
This is my final question. I don't know if you have anything else, Steve, but I'm standing there on the sideline and I'm talking to different people who are not field hockey people. They're Rutgers people. They're really enthusiastic about watching the game. And I think 70% of the times the referee blows their whistle, everyone kind of looks at me and says, Fonseca, what just happened? And I look back at them and said, I don't know. I mean, it seems like from where I'm standing, as again, a person who does not watch field hockey, it seems like the refs are making stuff up half the time, like what a foul is or isn't. As a player, you've played a lot, you've watched a lot. Is that fair, or is there actual rules in field hockey?
No, there are a lot of rules. There are rules. It's not just a fun game of blowing whistles, but the penalties are they're quick to come by, right? They're easy to come by. So, for example, the top penalties are ball touching a foot, right? Ball cannot hit anyone's foot. If so, it's the other team's ball. Stick hacking, right? So I can't just come up to you and hit your stick out of the way without touching the ball, right? Other team's ball. And a very not controversial, but misunderstood rule is obstruction, right? So think if you're like in a basketball game and you're blocking out, you can't do that in field hockey, right? You can't just have your back turned to someone and be dribbling in that way and blocking them. This actually came up in one of Rutgers' former shootouts where they got called for that and a goal got called back. But anyway, these types of fouls can happen very often. I think in very high performing games like the game yesterday, it was controlled, right? And it was really clean. But as a player, you know, right, when you've committed a foul, you know when it's justified or when it's not. But the league has also done a lot of work to speed up the downtime or the reaction to those calls. So as I mentioned, back in the day, 15 years ago, every time a penalty was called, everyone had to stop, you had to set up, the other team had to get 5 yards away, and it was a penalty hit, if you will, a free hit to restart. Now, as you've probably noticed, the team who didn't foul, so the team who now has possession, can just start dribbling, right? So you check the ball and then you can just start going. It's made the game much, much faster, and I think easier for fans to watch, because that is a common complaint, from friends and family, from all of us over the years, that it can be a little bit more challenging to watch when you might not understand the fouls, and there's a lot of them.
All right, my final question. If you listen to this podcast, you know that we do something called True or False, and we did very simple. If you haven't listened, don't worry, you're not the only significant other. My wife does not know we have such a thing. I thought you
were going to give me one of Brian's. What's his game? Yeah.
No, we'll spare you that one. But true or false? Very simple. True or false? Rutgers fans should be furious.
Yes.
Yes, true.
I'm furious. True. Yes, that is true.
Riot.
I would be furious. I am furious, right? I didn't even go to Rutgers and I'm furious.
Love it. Yes, you people were right. Everyone on Twitter, all you people, you did get screwed. Candace Lanny's right here to tell you.
I love the Twitter action on this too. And that Brian, like you said, there was a huge following there. There was a lot of supporters. So yes, the anger hopefully will fuel us into a really good tournament coming up very soon.
All right, Candace, you've been great. You have explained this to us in a point where I think I can say I almost know what happened.
We'll get there.
I got to say, a lot of the times when they blew the whistle, I didn't see it. Half of them, the ball hitting their foot, that makes so much sense. That
does help, right? That does help. Yeah.
Yeah. And the stick, I thought there was some stick fighting allowed, no stick fight. It makes perfect sense. I just got to say, when you're sitting there or you're standing there and everyone's looking for you, and I don't know, so, and I didn't mean to imply that it's a sport without rules. It's a lovely sport. I've enjoyed it. I just had no idea what was going on. So thank you for explaining.
You are very welcome. My pleasure. Thank you both for having me again. I love being.
Yeah, we'll have you back in the NCAA tournament after Rutgers wins the national championship. Thanks again.
Thank you.
All right, Pat, you're back now. Candace was great. Obviously, once again, there's going to be significant groundswell. If you think they're mad at the loss in field hockey, they're going to even be madder that you're back on this podcast. Put it that way.
Well, I heard there's a wrestling segment coming up, so maybe the Rutgers wrestling fans out there that demand Pat Lanny will get rewarded for once.
Lanny,
all right, do it.
Lanny,
do it. Let's talk wrestling. Wrestling Media Day. You were there. What do we got to know? Tell us the takeaways.
This is a team that has all 10 of its wrestlers ranked nationally, which is a big deal. Only 7 teams in the country have that. And to do it, Rutgers went out and revamped its lineup through the transfer portal, bringing in 3 guys that are legitimate NCAA qualifiers and have a shot at getting on the podium. So, yeah, Mitch Moore in the middleweights, Jacob Butler, and Yaroslav Slaviskowski at heavyweight. 3 new faces to add to this lineup. And Rutgers has last year had all these question marks about who was going to be starting on what weights and all that. This year, no questions. The lineup is very set. And Goodell really thinks it's going to be a really good team. So it should be a really exciting winter. If you're a Rutgers wrestling fan, get out there, support the team. And Goodell's pitch was, we need more season ticket holders. So you know what to do, guys.
All right. Women's soccer, we've got a 2-1 win that gets him into the Big Ten tournament. I ran into, it's funny, I was going to the game to get my flight to Indianapolis. I ran into the women's soccer team coming down. I'm like, look at this. And I stopped Michael Neal, had a nice chat with him. He's like, look, we're playing our best soccer late in the year. It's all right in front of us. He was right. Sadly, his sister died. He did not coach at that game, Brian. Is that correct? He, which is a shame, but they won it for him with a late goal. It's good stuff.
Correct. And this game was after you had bumped into him in the airport, right? This game was on
Correct.
Sunday.
Yep.
Yes, and they did win it for him. Sad to hear that, obviously, for Mike O'Neill, a fellow Kearney guy. They're playing well at the end of the year. Maybe they could sneak into the tournament. And once you're in the field, who knows what could happen. So I guess if you're going to be playing bad, it's better to do it in the beginning of the season and kind of ramp up as October hits its stride.
And men's soccer 4-4, you told me? Win or tie? I guess it's not a 4-4 win. No, 4-4 tie?
Yes. So similar to you, I ran into Jim McElderry on the way out of field hockey yesterday, and we were chatting a bit, and he was telling me about this crazy game they played this weekend that I somehow missed. They tied 4-4 with Northeastern in Massachusetts, pouring rain, pretty nutty conditions. They were up 4-3. It sounds like a wacky ball, hits a deflection off of one guy, I guess another, into the upper corner. Rutgers concedes a goal. Unfortunate, but they go to Indiana next to close out the regular season. They go to the Big Ten tournament after that, and they proved they could win the Big Ten tournament last year. Maybe they can make another run. So, but the one thing I wanted to mention is Scott Goodale. I watched the press conference. Maybe my favorite coach at Rutgers to listen to. Real dude. Will say very honest. Will not BS you. Will say what's on his mind. He's very good to listen to. I enjoyed it. And I guess, Pat, I had a question about wrestling as far as like they have 9 home duels. I know Goody was really pumping that up because last year they only had 4. Starting against Virginia Tech, supposed to be a really good team. Any other dual meets that you're really excited to see or you think will be fun for fans to see?
Once you get into that Big Ten slate, every match is really important, and every single one is good because the competition is just so great.
One thing that Goody said that I thought was interesting is that he has high expectations that Rutgers should be. He said their best season was 5th in the Big Ten as far as dual meet season. Like that's what he wants this program to be. That's what he thinks it should be. He's in his 17th year, and those are the expectations he has for the program. So I think it's good. I think it's refreshing to hear a coach say that. It sounds like, from the sound of it, 10 ranked wrestlers. I don't know if they have the shot to finish that high, but lofty goals for sure.
Yeah, and one of the big things is that they've never been one of the big 4 programs in the Big Ten, which is really, we talk about the blue bloods in football, blue bloods in wrestling are even just as good, if not better. But Michigan has a shot to be one of the best teams in the country this year. Penn State is obviously juggernaut of the sport, but the one Big Ten match that I have circled, Minnesota, January 27th is a good one. And then number 7, Ohio State on February 4th. Could be a really good match too. If Rutgers could knock off Ohio State, that's one of those blue bloods, Big 4 teams. Would be a very competitive match in my eyes.
All right. I can imagine we could possibly talk about more Rutgers stuff in one podcast, which is good because we're not going to do one later this week. There's a bye week. We're not going to have Brian try to pick up famous, I don't know, someone suggested famous people who did not graduate college, but we're just going to take the weekend off from picks. You've earned it. Folks, enjoy the bye, watch some football. We'll be back here on Monday to preview a pretty big game, noon on Saturday. That was the breaking news. So early tailgates, big noon, CBS, national TV, big deal. So we'll be back on Monday to talk about that. Thanks for listening.
Thank you for listening to the Rutgers Rant. To participate in the conversation and receive live updates about the Scarlet Knights directly to your phone, sign up at NJ.com/insider.